My name is Helen, and I am 67 years old. For 35 of those years, I was a mother. Now I am a grandmother. And for the last 3 weeks, I have been floating on a cloud of a single sentence, a sentence that took 35 years to arrive, a sentence that healed a part of me I didn't even know was wounded. It came during a phone call at 2 a.m. On the other end of the line was my daughter, Chloe. She had just become a mother herself. Her son, my grandson, was 3 weeks old, and she was crying, not the soft, gentle tears of joy you see in movies. This was the hard, ragged, gut-wrenching sob of a woman who has reached the absolute end of her rope. And through those sobs, she said the words that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. She said, "Mom, I get it now. I finally get it. And I am so sorry." And in that moment, the 35-year gap between us, the chasm of misunderstanding that had defined so much of our relationship, closed forever. To understand why those words meant so much, you have to understand the woman my daughter used to be. Chloe was my firstborn, my only child, and she was easy. She was a good baby, a good student, a good kid. But she was also a critic, a loving critic, a well-intentioned critic, but a critic nonetheless. She grew up in a world that was different from the one I had raised her in. She had parenting books, she had mommy blogs, she had a whole internet of experts telling her all the things I had done wrong, and she was not shy about sharing her opinions. I remember when she was in college, she came home for a visit and found me exhausted. I had been working a full-time job, taking care of my own aging mother and running a household. I was tired. And she looked at me with the kind of gentle, pitying condescension that only a 20-year-old can muster. And she said, "Mom, you need to practice better self-care." Self-care. It was a foreign concept to me. In my generation, we didn't have self-care. We had survival, we had duty. We had a relentless, bone-deep exhaustion that we just learned to live with. I didn't know how to explain to her that my self-care was the 5 minutes of silence I got in the car between work and home. I didn't know how to explain to her that my self-care was the knowledge that my family was fed and safe and loved. So I just smiled and said, "You're right, honey." And a little piece of me felt misunderstood, unseen. Then there were the comments about my worrying. I was a worrier. I worried about everything. I worried about her driving at night. I worried about her walking home from class. I worried about her catching a cold. To her, my worry was a lack of faith in her. It was a sign that I was overprotective, that I was smothering her. She would say, "Mom, you have to let me live my own life. You have to trust me." And I would try. I would bite my tongue and not call her for the 3rd time to make sure she got home okay. But she didn't understand that my worry was not a judgment of her. It was a physical manifestation of my love. It was the price of admission to the terrifying, beautiful, all-consuming experience of motherhood. It was the silent, humming anxiety that lives in the background of your mind from the moment your child is born. It is a love so fierce that the thought of anything happening to them is a physical pain. I couldn't explain that to her. So I just said, "I'm trying, honey." And the chasm between us grew a little wider. And then there were the sacrifices. The 1,000 invisible sacrifices that a mother makes, the ones that are never seen, never acknowledged, never understood. The promotions I didn't take because they would have required more travel. The hobbies I gave up because there was no time. The friendships that withered because I was too tired to nurture them. The nights I spent awake, holding a sick child, and then went to work the next day on 3 hours of sleep. The constant, draining, and completely invisible mental load of running a family. The doctor's appointments, the permission slips, the grocery lists, the birthday parties, the emotional well-being of every single person in the house. To Chloe, our life just worked. She didn't see the engine room. She didn't see the woman shoveling coal into the furnace day after day, year after year. She just saw the smooth, steady journey of the ship, and she took it for granted, as all children do, and as they should. But it creates a loneliness, a profound, deep-seated loneliness that I think only mothers can understand. It is the loneliness of being the one who holds it all together, the one who worries in silence, the one who sacrifices in secret. It is the loneliness of being the emotional bedrock of a family, a role that is both essential and completely invisible. You are the sun, and everyone else is a planet, orbiting around you, drawing warmth and light from you, but never truly understanding the fire at your core. And then, 3 weeks ago, Chloe became a son, and she called me from the heart of her own fire. On that 2 a.m. phone call, she was not the confident, critical young woman who had all the answers. She was a new mother, stripped bare by exhaustion, by fear, by a love so overwhelming it felt like a sickness. She sobbed, "I haven't slept in 3 days. He just cries and cries. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I'm going crazy. And all I can think about is you. All I can think about is that you did this. You did this for me, and I never knew. I never, ever knew." And then she said the words that I will never forget. She said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry for every time I rolled my eyes when you said you were tired. I'm sorry for every time I told you to stop worrying. I'm sorry for not seeing it, for not seeing you. I have been a mother for 35 years. I have received handmade cards and macaroni necklaces and breakfast in bed. But I have never received a gift as precious as that one. It was the gift of being seen. It was the gift of being understood. It was the closing of a circle, the healing of a wound I didn't even know I had. It was a validation that was so profound, so complete, that it felt like a physical weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The next day, I went to her house, and it was like looking in a time machine. I saw her, my capable, confident daughter, looking pale and disheveled, with dark circles under her eyes. I saw the sink full of dishes, the laundry piled up, the half-empty coffee cups scattered around the room, and I saw her, sitting on the couch, holding her crying baby, with a look of pure, unadulterated panic on her face. And I didn't feel a shred of, "I told you so." I just felt a wave of love and empathy so powerful it almost brought me to my knees. I saw her, and in her I saw myself 35 years ago. I took the baby from her arms. I told her to go take a shower, to go take a nap. I cleaned her kitchen. I did her laundry. I held my grandson and I walked him around the living room, and I whispered to him, "Your mommy loves you so much. She's just tired." And when Chloe came downstairs a few hours later with a little bit of color back in her cheeks, she just looked at me and we didn't have to say anything. We just knew we were members of the same secret society now, the secret society of mothers. And we shared a language that no one else could understand. What she said to me in the days that followed was a litany of apologies, a catalog of newfound understanding. She said, "I understand the worry now. It's not a thought, it's a physical thing. It's a constant low-grade hum of anxiety that never goes away." She said, "I understand the exhaustion. It's not just being tired. It's a bone-deep, soul-crushing weariness that makes you feel like you're losing your mind." She said, "I understand the sacrifice. I haven't read a book or watched a movie or had a conversation with my husband that wasn't interrupted in 3 weeks. My life is not my own anymore." And she said, "I understand the loneliness, the feeling that you are the only one in the world who can solve this problem, who can soothe this crying baby, who can make it all okay." And with every "I understand," I felt another layer of the old resentment, the old misunderstanding fall away. It was not that I needed her to suffer, it was that I needed her to see. And now she did, and our relationship has been transformed. It is no longer the relationship of a critical daughter and a defensive mother. It is the relationship of two women who have been through the same fire, who have walked the same sacred and brutal and beautiful path. It is a relationship of equals, a relationship of deep mutual respect and understanding. I am 67 years old, and I am for the first time truly known by my daughter, and she is for the first time truly known by me. And it is a gift. It is the final, most beautiful gift of motherhood. It is the moment when your child turns to you, not with the dependence of a child, not with the judgment of an adolescent, but with the profound, hard-won empathy of a fellow traveler, and says, "I see you." And in that moment, all the sleepless nights, all the thankless days, all the invisible sacrifices, they all become worth it 1,000 times over. The irony is that for years I had tried to explain it to her. I had tried to put words to the experience of motherhood, to bridge the gap between her world and mine. But it was like trying to describe color to someone who has only ever seen in black and white. You can use all the words you want, crimson, sapphire, emerald, but they will never understand the visceral, emotional impact of seeing a sunset or an ocean or a forest. Motherhood is a color. It is a primary color, a color that cannot be mixed from other colors. You cannot understand it by analogy. You can only understand it by experiencing it. And when Chloe gave birth, she was, for the first time, seeing in color. And the world, she realized, was a much more vibrant and terrifying and beautiful place than she had ever imagined. I think this is a universal story. It is the story of every mother and every daughter. It is the story of a generational transfer of wisdom that can only happen when the torch is passed. For years, I was the torchbearer. I was the one who carried the flame of maternal love with all its warmth and all its danger. And Chloe was the one who stood in the light of that flame, taking it for granted, and sometimes complaining about the heat. And now the torch has been passed. She is the one who carries the flame. And she is, for the first time, feeling the weight of it, the heat of it, the awesome responsibility of it. And she is looking back at me with a new respect, a new understanding, a new compassion. And she is saying, "How did you do it? How did you carry this for so long?" And my answer to her is this: I did it with love. I did it with a love that was so fierce, so primal, so all-consuming, that it made the sleepless nights and the endless worries and the invisible sacrifices not just bearable, but meaningful. I did it because you were my world, and I would have done it 1,000 times over. This is not to say that motherhood is all sacrifice and suffering. It is also a joy so profound it can barely be contained. It is the joy of a small hand in yours, the joy of a sleepy head on your shoulder, the joy of a first word, a first step, a first "I love you." It is the joy of watching a human being unfold, of seeing the world anew through their eyes. It is a love that is so pure, so unconditional, so expansive, that it breaks your heart open and remakes you into a new person, a stronger person, a softer person, a more human person. But you cannot have the joy without the pain. You cannot have the light without the shadow. You cannot have the profound connection without the profound vulnerability. And that is what Chloe is learning now. She is learning that to be a mother is to live with your heart walking around outside of your body. It is to be forever tethered to another human being by a bond that is both a source of infinite joy and a source of infinite pain. It is to be, in a word, vulnerable, and that vulnerability is the price of that love. For years, I resented Chloe's judgment. I resented her easy answers, her confident pronouncements, her inability to see the complexity of my life. But I see now that her judgment was not a sign of her cruelty, but a sign of her innocence. She was innocent of the fire. She was innocent of the vulnerability. She was innocent of the fierce, terrifying, and beautiful love that is motherhood, and I would not have wished that knowledge on her for a second before she was ready, because to know it is to be changed by it forever. And so I am not angry anymore. I am just grateful. I am grateful that she is healthy. I am grateful that my grandson is healthy. And I am grateful that we have been given this gift, this second chance to know each other, not as a mother and a daughter, but as two women, two mothers, who are walking the same path, just a few decades apart. It is a gift that has healed our past and has illuminated our future. It is a gift that has turned my daughter into my sister, and it is a gift that has finally made me feel seen. The phone call at 2 a.m. was a portal. It was a doorway that opened between our two worlds, and for the first time, we could see each other clearly. Before that call, we were speaking different languages. I was speaking the language of experience, of sacrifice, of a love that was forged in the fires of exhaustion and worry. She was speaking the language of theory, of ideals, of a love that was clean and simple and manageable. And the two languages were not compatible. There was no translation, but when she became a mother, she became fluent in my language overnight. And now we can finally have a real conversation. And what do we talk about? We talk about the things that no one tells you. We talk about the crushing boredom of a long afternoon with a fussy baby. We talk about the rage that can bubble up when you've been touched and needed and pulled on for 12 hours straight. We talk about the guilt that comes with wanting just 5 minutes to yourself. We talk about the fear that you are doing it all wrong, that you are messing up this perfect little human being. We talk about the loneliness of being surrounded by people but feeling completely and utterly alone. We talk about the things that you are not supposed to say out loud. And in that talking, in that sharing, we are healing not just our own relationship, but we are healing a generational wound. We are breaking the cycle of silence, the cycle of mothers suffering alone, the cycle of daughters not understanding. I am not the same woman I was a month ago. I am a grandmother, yes, but I am also a daughter who has finally been seen by her own daughter, and that has changed everything. It has given me a new sense of peace, a new sense of validation, a new sense of purpose. My purpose now is not to tell my daughter what to do. It is not to give her advice. It is not to save her from the fire. My purpose now is to sit with her in the fire. It is to be the one person in the world who can say, I know it's hard. I know you're tired. I know you're scared. And I know that you are doing a great job. I know because I see you. And that I have come to believe is the final, most important job of a mother. It is to be the keeper of the story. It is to be the one who remembers the sleepless nights and the endless worries and the invisible sacrifices. And it is to be the one who, when your own child is in the thick of it, can look them in the eye and with all the love in the world say, I see you and you are not alone. That is the gift. That is the legacy. That is the love that echoes through the loudest in the end. 0 Tenho 67 anos e minha filha acabou de se